always brings, it's become a sort of a different problem that we've seen before. The 3 points.
Senator, the first law in Europe on fake news, that was 3 years ago. And I'm so pleased that it didn't pass. I'm so pleased that well, we will discuss afterwards the new proposal for fake news law that this time is being proposed by Macron.
I'm very pleased to be part of this wonderful panel to cover a challenging topic, safety and security in an interconnected society. I'm Steven Lafosse-Marin. I'm co-founder of Human. We are a startup building a digital platform to contribute on development and humanitarian sectors. And we work with founders, NGO, and beneficiaries to short-term the time needed to provide founders funding from the call proposal to the delivery. And for us, trust is essential, fundamental to contribute to sustainable aid. So I'm the moderator of this session and will use my French accent and my digital notes. So in our global interconnected society, safety and security risks are more and more part of the leaders and C-level agendas. We recently heard about the social media, and a lot of companies, huge or small, are concerned about these topics. How to protect data, how to protect people, our democracy, how to trust or to continue to trust in companies, we are all concerned. So I propose you to start with an interesting European project named STORM, which benefits from safety background and crisis management reflex regarding full disaster to protect our cultural heritage, from the prevention to detection and response. Our first speaker for this will be Fabio Perozzini. Fabio, you are based in the United Kingdom, founder, managing director of Key People. I'll let you the floor to introduce your STORM project. And I propose you also one question: how the STORM project, the STORM approach, could be implemented to provide coverage for the full disaster facing cycle for cultural heritage.
Okay, I will start talking about this project. This is not especially a project dedicated to cybersecurity, but it is a project dedicated to safety. Safety not for people, but safety for cultural heritage. Our main goal is to improve resilience of cultural heritage. And the process described in this section, so starting from prevention, the be prepared approach and the response is exactly the process we would like to propose for cultural heritage. To do that, we worked now, it is 2.5 years that we are working. We achieved some very important results, although we are also committed to achieve further results in the next 6 months. We understood what is the concept of resilience, both when talking about sudden disaster or slow disaster. What is going to happen is happening in these days in Italy is an example of sudden disaster, while what is happening in UK on the east coast, the erosion of the sea, is a slow disaster. But in both ways we have a disaster. We understood that it is very important to work in a collaboration between all the actors that could be involved in the safety. And this is a very difficult challenge because we are talking about people with very different, widespread of competencies, and also with a glossary completely different. So talking with restorers and with engineers and with firefighters, we are talking with three different languages. And this is a challenge. So for instance, in our project, we start creating a framework of references in order to help people to communicate each other. Then it is very, very important, we understood, to stay on field, to understand what is going on day by day and understand what could happen. Because it is not possible to do this job staying at your desk and waiting and designing solution without having a clear view of what is the possibility. The aim at the end is, if it is not possible to avoid disaster, at least to limit and to block damages as soon as possible. So what we achieve? We achieve a predictive model. So we are now able to understand from some statistical data how high is the possibility to have a disaster in some place. This is unfortunately not valid for earthquakes, but we have a couple of teams, one in Turkey and one in Greece, working on earthquakes, and I can tell you that they are able to understand how a building is going to collapse in terms of earthquakes. And this is very interesting because we can be prepared to that kind of collapse. It is important to monitor the situation. And this is a word very important, monitor, because this word has different meaning if you talk with a firefighter, if you talk with an engineer, if you talk with an architect. So first of all, when we talk about monitoring, we are considering real-time data monitoring. So we are considering IoT, we are considering something that could work everywhere, every time, on a resilient communication, and this came back to the 4G, 3G, 5G discussion. It is very important to create a collaborative environment. Collaborative environment should count on security. So cybersecurity is mandatory because often we are talking about sensible data. Because for instance, the value of some cultural heritage is very sensible. Because during a disaster, there is a high risk that cultural goods could be stolen by people going around. It is very important to have people prepared to face the disaster. This is very important, and this is valid, is quite an horizontal theme, because this is valid also for cybersecurity. Be prepared is the first step to face the issue. And for answering what Stephen was asking me before, policy improvement. This is a weak point. So the policy around the world, in Europe as in other parts of the world, are not updated. So there is no funds for preparedness. So nobody is dealing with that. This is how we built the preparedness. So we started with a data collection. So we collected the existing data. They have been not all digitalized, because this is not a project to digitalize data. They were kept and considered for their importance. The aim was to define priorities and vulnerability of cultural heritage. To do that, we assess a preparedness. So all the tools, hardware, and procedures need to be prepared were assessed. There was a lot of activity in the pre-disaster, so simulation and people trained to be ready. So what you are seeing is after the disaster, each person is able to know exactly what he has to do. There is a platform behind that follow, you will see a tablet, and when going on field, they have this tablet that clearly give them information about priority, vulnerability, and how to proceed to save the cultural item. So it seems very easy, but I can tell you that this is really a key point. ICROM just released a few days ago a document in which the process described is very similar. Very similar. We didn't cover in this project the cultural, the social value of culture, because this project was to face emergency, a physical emergency. And they cover also the intangible goods aspect, but it will be in the next one. We are not intended to stop. We are very proud to say that we involve a lot of competencies. This is a list. I have to tell you that I'm talking about a 7.3 million euro project involving 20 partners from 7 different countries. So we had really a wide range of competencies in place, and we were really able, thanks to the European Commission, to do a great job on that. At the end, the key word is process-driven experience. So it is very, very important to understand how to proceed. Thanks.
Thank you, Fabio. Just one question. Do you think this innovative approach could be implemented in existing governance model?
Well, it is not easy. It is not easy, although some government show sensibility about that, but it is not easy because the investment to be done is huge, and the results are not so visible from the political point of view. So you cannot win the election showing that you did that. So this is a weak point in our project.
Thank you. I propose you now to have our next speaker, Dan Schumacher. Dan, you are professor and director of the graduate program in cybersecurity and principal investigator for the National Security Agency's Center of Academic Excellence at University of Détroit-Mercy. Dan, you propose us to share some global cybersecurity approaches through the spectrum of cultural diversity, especially in US and UK. So Dan, I'll let you the floor.
That's a promise. And add a complete solution. The U.S. academics, I'm trying to not be an academic, even though